A heavy cruiser goes dark in 12 minutes. 1,195 men. No escort. No one looking for them. This is how a secret atomic mission ended in 4 days of sharks, thirst, and a rescue found by accident. In mid-July 1945, USS Indianapolis left San Francisco carrying components for Little Boy, the bomb that would fall on Hiroshima. Most of the men aboard had no idea what was in the crates. The orders were that restricted. She reached the island of Tinian on July 26th, offloaded her cargo in under an hour, and turned toward the Philippines. She was a Portland-class heavy cruiser, built for speed, sent alone to save days. An escort would have cost time, and time was the one thing the mission could not spare. Her next leg, Guam to Leyte, was logged as routine transit. On paper, the submarine threat looked low that week. She wasn't zigzagging. The captain had discretion based on visibility, and that night the sea was clear and flat. She had no escort, and the reporting system behind her was loose enough that a missed arrival would not trigger an immediate alarm. Out there too was Japanese submarine Stubborn 58, running silent through the same shipping lane. No visible torpedo wake. Just after midnight on July 30th, I-58 found Indianapolis. 2 torpedoes hit the starboard side. The first tears into the bow. The second breaks deeper, near the fuel lines and the power runs, and fire mushrooms up the stack. Metal shrieks. Lights die. The cruiser rolls hard to starboard as compartments flood in seconds. Men grab for ladders. Smoke swallows the passageways. On the bridge, someone gets the SOS out just before the power dies. Below, steam lines scream. By the 3rd minute, the list is past saving. The order goes out. Abandon ship. Rafts jam in their cradles. Some foul. Others hit the water with half their fittings missing. Men go over the side in groups and alone, kicking clear of the hull, because everyone knows the suction is coming. Some were already burned, some were already wounded. They went in anyway. The stern lifts. The ship folds into itself. In roughly 12 minutes, Indianapolis is gone. Those near the screws feel the pull tug at their boots. Then it lets go. In the sudden dark, an oil slick spreads thick across the surface. Men called out names to find each other. Some answers came back. Many did not. About 890 men make it off the hull. There is no splint. Dawn brings heat and a count of who is still there. The men with life jackets form circles around the few intact rafts. The weakest go to the center, and men rotate from the outer ring inward to rest before going back out. Burned sailors are held under the arms. Men who cannot stop shaking are kept between 2 others. Someone with a whistle runs a rough muster and tells everyone to keep their shoes on. Sharks arrive by late morning. Oceanic white tips cruise the perimeter, then dart at drifting bodies. The groups kick and shove water hard to break each approach. The first day they fought back hard. By the second, the reactions came slower. By the third, some men barely turned to look. The sun cooks unprotected skin. Salt works on mouths and throats. Dehydration chews through attention spans and then through reason. By the second night, some men whisper about rain that isn't there. Others drink salt water and go quiet, then frantic. Some slip out of their jackets in the dark and don't come back up. When a squall does roll through, a few hold canvas and lap water into helmets, and a radioman quietly counts seconds between lightning and thunder like he's timing code groups. A petty officer cuts a line tangling men together because one sinking body could pull the rest down with it. No one argues. Everyone understands. The third day is the worst. Not because anything changes, but because nothing does. The horizon stays empty. The sharks stay. The thirst gets worse. Men who had spent the first day helping others now need help themselves. A few stopped scanning the sky altogether. Some part of them had already started to let go. Meanwhile, the system that should have noticed Indianapolis was missing had not moved. Several stations received distress signals and dismissed them. One officer decided the transmission was likely a Japanese trap, because no ship was supposed to be in that area. Her non-arrival at Leyte was logged and ignored. No search was ordered. The men had been in the water for nearly 4 days before anyone came looking. Not because rescue was impossible, but because no one knew to look. Morning of August 2nd, Lieutenant Wilbur Gwinn is flying a routine patrol when he glances out while troubleshooting a bulky antenna wire and spots a long oil slick below, then specks, then arms. He keys the radio with coordinates and one word: survivors. Lieutenant Commander Adrian Marks answers in a PBY Catalina. Open ocean landing is prohibited in that sea state. He does the math and lands anyway. The keel thumps hard on the swells. Spray sheets over the cockpit windows. Men are hauled through hatches and over the sides. When the cabin fills, the crew lashes survivors to the wings so they don't slide back into the water. Then the Catalina taxis in slow circles, pulling in more. After the shock of touchdown, there is one long breath where the only sounds on board are coughing and the drip of water from soaked flight suits onto the aluminum deck. USS Cecil J. Doyle arrives and aims her searchlights straight up, not at the water, but at the sky, to guide other ships in. For a moment, the wind carries only the hum of the Doyle's generators and a distant horn. After 4 days of empty horizon, light itself looked like rescue. A few heads lifted that had stopped lifting hours before. More ships arrive through the night. USS Register, USS Ringness, USS Bassett among them. Sailors worked through the dark with searchlights and nets, pulling the living from the oil while marking bodies for later recovery. They pulled until their shoulders gave out because the men below no longer had the strength to climb. The survivors were taken aboard and fed sips of water by schedule. The body could not handle more. The final count: 316 survivors, of 1,195 men. The greatest loss of life at sea from a single ship in U.S. Navy history. And that was the cruelest part. The mission itself had worked. Little Boy fell on Hiroshima 11 days later. The war ended weeks after that. The Navy needed someone to answer for the loss, and much of that weight fell on Captain Charles McVay III. He was court-martialed, the only American commanding officer tried for a wartime loss of his ship. The decision was controversial from the start. Mochizura Hashimoto, the Japanese commander who had sunk Indianapolis, was brought to Washington to testify against McVay, a move that drew criticism even from some in Congress. Decades later, in 2000, McVay was formally exonerated. But long before that, the case had already destroyed the rest of his life. He died by suicide in 1968, still receiving hate mail from the families of the dead. The Navy rewrote its movement reporting. New rules ensured that a missing ship triggered a search, not an assumption. But the rules came after. The Torpedoes sank Indianapolis in 12 minutes. The reporting failures kept killing for 4 more days. For more frontline World War II stories told decision by decision, subscribe and stay with us.